friends, welcome back to Spiritism for All, and today we continue to study the book Behind the Scenes of Obsession, chapter The Comforting Christ. The spiritual author is Manoel Philomeno de Miranda, and the medium is Divaldo Pereira Franco. Faced with the impossibility of Mr. Mateus remaining at the hospital and the family not being able to keep him in a private hospital, 20 days after the accident that prostrated him, he was sent home. Although the picture was not very encouraging, he was able to speak with great difficulty, showing perfect lucidity. Dona Rosa, fatigued by her usual tasks, would now add to her normal work the burden of difficult nursing of her partner, prostrated by the cerebral embolism, which demanded immense rest, an environment of calm and restoration, continuous and devoted assistance. Simultaneously, however, divine help did not take long. Mariana's psychic revision made her reconsider the intimate attitudes of animosity maintained against her father, and as the Spiritist knowledge penetrated her mind and heart, her interior landscape was renewed. Contact with the sublime lessons of Christ made her change entirely. From the first hours of Mr. Mateus' arrival at home, she voluntarily became his general's company, helping him with hygiene, keeping medication schedules, replacing her mother by his side while she took care of the home activities. Adalberto, in turn, who had been visiting the house since the most difficult days of his girlfriend's illness, increasingly interested in the doctrine of the spirits, became the son of the hemiplegic who, in the face of the persevering affection of those around him, began to show moving signs of spiritual renewal. Amalia, faithful to the duties of the home and within it, was the hands that brought the coins for immediate purchases, while Marta, who had changed into a more reflective attitude after her interview with Petitinga, started to help her mother with the seams at the home and in the art of embroidery, significantly increasing domestic income. On the next visit we made to the Soares family, the environment was significantly changed. Dona Rosa confessed her joy to us, despite the sum of worries that martyred her in the face of his husband's illness and the natural problems that resulted. From the first most distressing moments, however, the hands of charity through Petitinga began to donate material aid on behalf of the circle of brothers of the faith, in order to reduce the cruelty of the trials in that house. On the occasion of our visit, the loving friend of the suffering asked Marta about the rapprochement with her father. She, very embarrassed, replied, "I feel nervous, agitated inside," she said, embarrassed. "I fear a new friction at the time of making up. In the case Dad does not forgive me as should be right, I find myself conflicted in relation to the unfortunate practice to which I have been involved for many years. Everything seems to me now like an awakening from a cruel nightmare, in which I journeyed tied to thick hopes that led me inexorably blind, stumbling, my mind stirred by indescribable hallucinations. The lack of knowledge of Spiritism as on the part of some of its followers, nowadays who have not penetrated its precious lessons, or who have joined the Spiritist activities to attend to immediate material interests, thus confirming the absence of study and meditation on the basis of the doctrine, has been generating unspeakable confusions. They expose, for example, some of these adepts that in the face of very unhappy entities, violent persecutors, vigorous obsessors, measures are needed outside the camps of the doctrine, in whose places such spirits are subjected to processes of terror, force, and strange practices, who frighten them and through which they keep them away from their victims. Complete madness. The severity of the laws of cause and effect in an immediate elucidation of this inappropriate information. In every obsession there's a collector, because there's a debtor. To free this one to harm that one would be to punish him again, him who was a victim before. It would be to invest against the statute of divine justice, to punish the ignorant instead of instructing them, to free one through the imprisonment of the other, to defend someone by harming another. The sovereign law of love is the force capable of modifying the structure of life and penetrating the hateful self of the tormented I to heal him. In any obsession, therefore, in which love and clarification do not fulfill their mission, the human measures of temerity and violence can only aggravate the evil, postponing it until the patient's reservations be lower and, therefore, consequently, less favorable to healing, to liberation. The illustrious encoder Allan Kardec elucidates that obsession is the persistent action that an evil spirit exerts on an individual. And he warns, just as infirmities result from physical imperfections that make the body accessible to pernicious outside influences, obsession always stems from a moral imperfection which gives rise to an evil spirit. A physical cause is opposed by a physical force. A precise moral cause is opposed to a moral force. He considers, however, vehement. In cases of serious obsession, the obsessed is as if enveloped and impregnated with a pernicious fluid, which neutralizes the action of healthy fluids and repels them. It's from that fluid that it's important to disentangle him. Now, a bad fluid cannot be eliminated by an equally bad one. Through an action identical to that of the healing medium, in cases of illness, it's need to expel a bad fluid with the help of a better fluid. But this mechanical action is not always enough. Above all, it's necessary to act on the intelligent being, who must have the right to speak with authority, who, however, die to those who do not have moral superiority. The bigger this one, the bigger that one will be. The bigger the moral superiority, the bigger will be the fluidic influence. And finally, he observes, in all cases of obsession, prayer is the most powerful means available to dissuade the obsessor from his evil purposes. Such are the constant notes of the Genesis by Allan Kardec, chapter 14, Obsessions and Possessions, second edition of the International Spiritist Council, from which we extract these topics and that deserve, like others, from the opportune study, accurate meditations. Others hurried militants also inform that for a good process of development or mediumship education, the application of certain and strange practices is agreed, so that the faculty can erupt at once with beneficial results, as if mediumship were something elastic that responded to the break of the force, expanding immediately. Like any other psychological faculty or physiological function, mediumship requires special care, meeting its own requirements and specific conditions that provide education and the deployment of resources to meet the purposes for which it is intended. In this sense, the Medium's book by Allan Kardec is still the best script for mediums and people who wish to know the mediumistic faculties of man, how to conduct them and operate with them, the dangers of bad mediumistic practice, etc. Nowadays, we have in the Spiritist centers the mediumistic development or orientation courses, and in every Spiritist center you can find these courses that follow the basic ones, where you study the Spiritist's book and the Gospel according to Spiritism, and after that you study the Medium's book. You have many books that are dedicated to the study of mediumship, and that were developed by Federação Espírita de São Paulo and Federação Espírita Brasileira. You can find them in Spiritist centers. And that's the best way to develop mediumship, guided by someone who have experience to orient you. Okay? So let's proceed. What normally occurs in these so-called instantaneous group mechanical developments belongs to the chapters of suggestion, animism, psychological conditionings, and even states of neurosis. Those who desire real and beneficial results of mediumship and its practice without hassle, without demands, improving themselves morally and spiritually, should be protected by those who desire real and beneficial results from mediumship and its practice, in order to become accredited to the assistance of the good spirits. That's a note from the spiritual author. Before proceeding, the word quimbanda is a Brazilian word that relates to a kind of religion whose origin is from the Modern Africa um, religions related to the forces of nature, some kind of sorcerers, powers, and can be used. Those powers, those how could we say um, uses can be used for the good, but you can see it in candomblé, which is another African or originated religion. It's practiced in Brazil. But when you talk about Kimbanda, we are talking about the bad use of those powers. The use to a kind of low sorcerer, witchery dedicated for obtaining material response to material needs, which is not the object of the real mediumship. But let's proceed here. The former Kimbanda medium began to cry. The body was seized by embarrassing contractions, and even trying to control the affliction, she felt the savage pain that was tearing her apart. Petitinga embraced her in waves of affection and tenderness, approaching her and trying to calm her with words of hope. Martha, my daughter, the gospel, he affirmed with conviction, is a door of light for those who mourn in the darkness. A redemptive path that opens up multiple opportunities for all of us. The escape is from sublime duties, offering us a fresh start in any situation and at all times. For those who really want elevation, there is no wasted time, no wasted opportunity that does not bring precious teachings, which we can take advantage of in the future. Cheer up, my daughter. The moment of renewal occurs as an instant of pain. The air that penetrates the newborn lungs, giving them extra uterine life, also provokes the sensations of pain. So too the balsamic air of the Christ, in penetrating your soul, breaks the armor of shadow that had enveloped you, and the shimmering light of new life understandably produces in you the transitory anguish and apprehension. I am afraid, she managed to say. I fear the retaliation of those with whom I was long compromised. They are terrible. I have long wanted to escape their relentless encirclement, but I had no strength. I didn't know how to do it. I have been an obedient slave to them. I see them calling themselves my friends, but cruel to many. By God, I fear them. I don't know if I can bear to keep this decision and if I will achieve freedom. How I long to be free to try a new life, new aspirations that I cherish and have not been able to enjoy. God is our Father, said Petitinga, his face flushed, illuminated by a transcendent glare. Jesus said, so he is the Father of all. Examine his comforting information, our Father. Therefore, he takes care of the weakest children, who give their lives to him, as well as the most rebellious ones who plot to make life difficult for their brothers. Say like Jesus in agony, and be calm. Father, into your hands I commend my spirit, and let yourself be swept along by the invisible and powerful currents of his love. After a very expressive pause, he concluded, Start the new phase from today, approaching your Father, begging His forgiveness. An honest attitude is accompanied by convincing fluids, which involve powerful those to whom we address. Humble yourself before the one who, in the name of the Father of all, granted you physical clothing, and make him feel honored as head of the family. Help him in the blessed strength he lives in, and the strength of his feelings will speak louder than the brightest words that escape his lips. Go soon after to visit our house, study the works of the distinguished Master Kardec, drinking from the august sources of Spiritist information the purest water, unifying and nourishing the knowledge that frees, and, with your soul touched by the gentle breeze of the gospel, spread hope. Who knows? Soon your mediumistic possibilities, placed at the service of Christ, after being necessarily disciplined, will be able to produce and help those those same brothers who have judged you in ignorance for so many years, transforming them into friends and companions on the journey. There is no force that have more strength than the force of love. With Dona Rosa's permission, we headed continuously towards the alcove where the sick man was. Mariana, sitting in a chair beside the bed, assisted him for any need. Affectionate, she greeted us with a wide and generous smile. Handing her the book of spiritual life, Petitinga asked her to open it and read the text on which her eyes focused. The girl closed her eyelids and opened the copy of the Gospel according to Spiritism, International Spiritist Council second edition, that she had in her hands, and that she had from chapter 6, The Consoling Christ. Item 7. I am the great doctor of souls, and I have come to bring you the medicine that shall heal them. The frail, the suffering, and the infirm are my blessed children, and I have come to save them. Therefore come to me, you who suffer and who are overburdened, and you will be soothed and consoled. Do not look elsewhere for strength and consolation, for the world is unable to provide them. God makes a supreme appeal to your hearts through Spiritism. Listen to it. May impiety, deceit, error, and disbelief be uprooted from your aching souls. They are the monsters that suck your purest blood, and which nearly always wound your mortality. And which nearly always wound you mortally. In the future, humble and submissive to your Creator, may you practice His divine law. Love and pray. Be docile before the spirits of the Lord. Invoke Him from the depths of your heart, and then He will send you His beloved Son to teach you and say these good words. I am here. I have come to you because you have called me. This message was by the Spirit of Truth, Bordeaux, 1861. The Spirit of Truth was the highest rank spirit of the Spiritist compilation, It someone's say that he is Jesus, but some say that he is a spirit of high level that was designed by Jesus to coordinate the Spiritist construction of books, messages, and orientations to Allan Kardec. Continuing here, Mariana concluded the reading with emotion caused the spiritual benefactors, inspiring and guiding us, responded to the concerns of all of us with Christ the Consoling. Although the expression changed on Mr. Mateus' face, we noticed tears in his eyes. Martha, visibly sensitized, took her father's right hand, which had not been affected by the embolism, knelt beside the half-dead body on the bed, and swinging it asked for forgiveness. Her voice, weakened in the swollen throat through tears, laughed at cost. We thought of Jesus at that supreme moment of redemption, asking him for strength and help for all of us, especially for the suffering father who had never supposed to experience such a significant witness of filial love. Mr. Mateus, with great effort, became worthy of his daughter's gesture. He encircled Martha's fingers in his own, blessing her silently and emotionally with the oblivion of evil and the hope of good. That was an evangelical scene, evocative in all its impact, from the early days of the nascent good news. Inspired by Saturnino, Petitinga raised his voice and, in an eloquent prayer, translated everyone's feelings to the Christ of good, the excellence of the benefactor and guide of humanity, which, with our souls swollen with emotions, we left the alcove to spare the patients from further emotional shocks, and returned to the dining room. Mariana, who was thirsty for light, asked Petitinga without preamble. Faced with this proof of the help of our spiritual guides, couldn't I, whenever possible, standing by Dad's side, read to him the Gospel according to Spiritism, in order to slowly instruct us in the lessons of faith? Of course, I'll try not to tire him out. A good reading, in addition to edifying, is also distracting, isn't it? Petitinga looked at her astonished and readily agreed. In full agreement. It's evident that the harvest of light greatly favors the wealth of the ark that receives it. Very good this suggestion, this idea. The evangelizing word addressed to him will also attend to the spiritual sufferers who may be linked to him for one reason or another. In a house where the clarity of the gospel is lit, powerful defenses are erected, preventing the invasion of the disruptive forces of inferior ereticity. When a group prays, united in the bonds of communion by prayer, resistances are established capable of withstanding the discharges of the aggression of evil originating in one or another plane of life. The prayer and uplifting lesson become powerful waves of life-giving energy that benefit all who participate. And to make the value of the noble idea very clear, he argued, we still do not know properly on earth the power of thought. The mind works inside and outside the brain through which it manifests, attracting or repelling compatible or antagonistic forces. We all suffer the reflections of each other in the flesh as well from those who are outside the material body, with our possible resources of assimilation or disassimilation. No man can live free from the waves of interchange of one kind or another, which incessantly affects us. We absorb and eliminate the images that are peculiar to us, walking with them and tying us to their moorings or freeing us from them in the direction of happiness. This means that we are what we produce mentally, living immanent to our own mental creations, as to the thoughts we receive from others. The entire universe is made of exchanges. The idea that man shapes and cultivates, externalizes and spreads, translates his state, his moral and spiritual height. Now, in tune with the idea of the greater spiritual life, we will shape superior images and live vitalizing emotions that will outline for us the preambles of the interior peace that, in the end, will dominate us. Martha, excited by the excellent explanation, asked, "And in my case, my friend, as you are aware, for more than 10 years I have been numbed by the opium of the brutalizing forces of the lower spirit world. In the circle of action in which I have worked, we act with the forces of nature, and upon receiving the enticement of many entities, we also assume commitments to them. Will I be able to undo all this pure and simple, without suffering damage and without unbalancing them?" After a slight and necessary meditation, Petitinga clarified, "Any commitment we spontaneously assume deserves consideration. However, only one commitment seems to us to be true, irreversible, what we have for ourselves, for our evolution. This one is non-transferable, unquestionable. Entities that are linked to us or with which we emanate Entities that are linked to us or with which we emanate exchange energies become diners of our psychic emanations, nourishing themselves with our strength as occurs in obsessions. As a matter of fact, in any process in which there is a constricting link between a discarnate and an incarnate person, or vice versa, we are faced with an ongoing obsession, or, at the very least, with a fascination on the way to obsessive disaster. The expression "to undo the bonds" must be replaced by "modify the bonds," because in truth you do not want to abandon them, but to free yourself from the error that they linger, to journey in search of the harmony that you need. And after further reflection he concluded, "The forces of nature are the spirits, which can be defined according to Allan Kardec as the intelligent beings of creation. They populate the universe beyond the material world. Now, as such, they stage at various degrees of evolution from the most primitive to the highest. Naturally, a physio-psychic organization acclimated to the grosser fluidic emanations will resent it, moving away from the habitual union on which it was nourished. Jesus, however, is the bread of life and will solve the problem. There is no reason to fear. He will nourish you with superior food. We also believe that once the resolution is taken to move in another direction, there is no way or reason to look back, dwelling on fears, keeping in tune with depressing intuitions and vulgar superstitions, which do not deserve consideration, unless you want to clarify them. Without a doubt, many times you will experience difficulties. Trust, however, and move forward. In face to the explanation, said Martha, convicted without hesitation, I intend, even today, to free myself from talismans and amulets, objects and garments, closing definitely the doors of my old consulting room and opening my soul to the light of the Lord. And because she was still understandably acclimated to the habits of extravagant external cults, she knelt down and, in a pathetic tone, pleaded for the protection of heaven. Very kindly, Pijitinga lifted her and spoke with good humor. The faithful and vigilant servant is always on his feet, waiting for the service that the Lord intends for him. We all smiled at the happy interference. Dona Rosa, who was jubilant, hugged her father for a long time. Gradually, peace won in the home of the Soares family. The panorama, although still retained some light shadows, presented itself as a welcome sign. Today was already responding to the afflictions of the past, and tomorrow was designed to be beneficial, responding to the concerns of the present, of the present. This, without a doubt, is the ministry of Spiritism, to bring Jesus Christ back to the suffering hearts of the earth, repeat the memorable experiences of when he was among us, to console the unfortunate beyond the grave, freeing them from the supreme ignorance of spiritual realities, untie the constricting bonds that link the discarnate ones in disturbance to the incarnate ones who are disturbed. Take care of the obsessed and enlighten the conscience of the obsessed and obsessors, to sow love in all ways, through the hands of charity in all dimensions, because Spiritism is the consoler promised by Jesus. Next chapter, the Blessed Illness. Thank you very much for watching us. If you like this video, please leave your like, share with your friends, leave your comments if you want, and please subscribe to help us to grow. Thank you very much.